Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Aoshi here, and we're going to be doing this live, telling you why the new situation battles that have been added to the game, even this temporarily, because this is only going for about 2 different weeks, ending on the 26th being the last day of situation battles, but why it's pretty important for the community as a whole that has been doing shuffle battles, ace matches, basic matches, and just all the limited roles that we've had or modes in the game. And it's actually quite fun once you wrap your head around it. And it's strangely enough, I would say it's pretty well thought out, despite it initially feeling, for me at the time too, I know a lot of folks initially thought, well, this is so unbalanced. This is unbalanced towards, one team over another. But GBO2 almost in a way has been kind of that way. But when you look at the units that are involved, the fact that you're not actually able to put in custom parts in there and choose what suit, you're basically eliminating a lot of the, I would say, things that you deal with when you're playing GBO2 when you're playing it normally, basic or quick. You're always wondering, hey, is that guy going to be really good with that suit? Is he bringing the optimum suit, or why are we running double supports? And in this case, if you look at the Federation side, or the A team, no pun intended, we got the Operation V suits there. You got the Grandpa Gundam, the regular Gundam at 400. Pretty well standardized suit, pretty reliable. Nothing super crazy, but it is pretty strong when you compare to the other teammates of that squad as well, considering the gun cannon and gun tank both coming in at 350. They're, in some cases, to, at first glance, it might be a liability because of the fact that we are fighting in Jaburo. Jaburo is a very linear close quarters type map, which for some people it's a pain in the ass because of the explosions and the lighting. That's something they hope gets fixed, but that's a side issue there. But again, they're both supports. They're meant to have room to work. Ideally, they can work at midline distances. In-game move would be probably around 350 to 450 or so, but because of how the map layout is for Jaburo, or underground base as they call it, there are certain lanes, I guess you could say, or certain line of sight spots that you can set up to really take advantage of that, especially if you're playing from a defensive or offensive point, which we'll get into that shortly, don't worry. But when you look at the support team after that, you got 2 GMs. Now, one comes with a spray gun, one comes with the hyper bazooka, but they're both at 200 cost. So, they are, I would say, a lot beefier than I remember at the time. And they come with about, we'll say 11,000, HP, which is not bad when you add in the shield HP, kind of supplement it. But the thing about something as, we'll say, plain Jane as the GM, is that it doesn't have a lot of skills compared to the 3 other suits that are up there. And even them are pretty standard. So it does kind of check your brain as far as like, hey, I don't have all the fun bells and whistles of my fancier suits at mid cost or high cost if that's all you play. And it really, in a way, is kind of like an IQ check of how you're able to adapt, and it's almost a very big test of skill too. But that's the Federation side. Going into the B team, or the Zeon side, you got Char, which comes in at 300. The only difference for this mode is I don't know 100% if it's actually something that has been tweaked with on game side, where because it's supposed to be Char's suit, it is able to move a lot faster, both boosting and walking speed. So there's a lot of speculation that it's the Zagok from the simulator missions in Code Fairy, maybe. I cannot confirm or deny that, but if you treat it like that and just squash it, it's definitely something that can be killed, essentially. And playing as it, that's actually one of the suits that I actually got my first win with. So it is pretty nice to kind of have a refresher on playing some of the older suits, some of the more simple suits, in a time where we didn't have all these higher cost 450 on up suits that were out there. And it's actually manageable considering this mode now. Also, what's up, Asian? How you doing, man? Mr. Sloth, what you been up to? Going into everybody's favorite, the Pepsi Zoc. 450, you know, the thing that woke me up to this whole mode too is the fact that we are also looking at the Zoc. Basically, the thing is that the Zoc is a linear support, so you have to have direct line of sight, and so it does kind of limit you. Also, kind of in the same boat that the gun cannon and gun tank have to deal with, is it doesn't have the same maneuverability. It's a big box, and so trying to shoot around so many different like pieces of cover on Jaburo on the map, just it's a pain in the butt. It's really a pain in the butt. So you do rely on your teammates to kind of give you that spacing to work. You also have the GOG, which for a lot of folks, people don't realize the GOG is pretty tanky, and it only has shock dampers. It doesn't even have maneuver armor. So if you're fighting against something like that, people have to have to realize that even though, like, say that they are running 2 supports on the Federation side, you can deal with it. Also, at the same time, playing as the GOG, you are going to be kind of frontlining and soaking up a lot of damage and the attention of the enemy team, which goes into the next set of units that the B team gets, or the Zeon side, which is the ACT guy, which I suck with personally, but the nice thing about them is that they have a high level of stealth to the point where, because Jaburo has that sort of side tunnel there, the enemy team, if you're playing on the Zeon side, literally has to kind of keep an eye on all the different lanes to get to the support, because once you lose that numbers advantage on the Federation side, it's just easy pickings for everybody else to kind of just rush in, and it's just so easy. I've seen that a couple times where I was still trying to figure out the mode, and it was well, it's quick, so it doesn't, it shouldn't make you angry, but it does kind of frustrate you. There's like, okay, I'm not figuring this out yet. My team's not figuring out this. What do I do? What am I doing wrong? And so, in a way, when you throw everything all together as it is, to me, it's kind of like almost a spiritual reiteration of Federation versus Zeon thrown into GBO2, which is crazy because when you look at the way Mix-Up is sort of designed, it's literally the same thing almost. Like, the only difference is the suits that you're playing are basically completely naked. There's no parts on there. The most that you can affect it is you actually tune the suits to maximum, which I think my gun tank, because I was bored one day, I decided to go through, I think, 4 steps. I don't know if I did all 6. And I was like, wait a minute, why does it have 13-1 when a stock gun tank at 350 has 13k flat? So it's pretty crazy. And like the crazy part too is I have all 3 of my wins recorded. So, but yeah, oh, that's not just one rotation. What do you mean? Situation battles should be a randomized rotation and not just one. Well, I think for the most part, they're trying to see if it's something that would be something that the community will take up, because like, remember the first time that they brought up Brawl as a mode, and that was only something that you could do in quick match as well. It ended up being pretty fun, and a lot of people do like running that as a mode. So I kind of pitched out there, like, with the last time we had something like this was series battles, which was kind of cool, but it did kind of limit it to certain series, and then they had to kind of well, they cut out certain suits that probably would have fit in that area, but it was kind of outside of the, you know, say whatever, you know, animation series it was from. So it was just kind of like, well, where am I gonna get a support? Where am I gonna get a raid? What am I gonna do? So, you know, it's kind of the same thing. So there's that to consider. Brawl, you mean Red Rider fight first? You mean, you know, was like Karma Club, you spin me right round? That sort of thing.
Ready to begin?
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we are starting from the A side for the situation battles. So basically, sometimes we're used to playing so much rated or quick or whatever that a lot of times we want to push forward. So far, from what I've seen strategic-wise, you can push out a little bit, but you don't want to push out too far. The reason for that is your biggest assets on the Federation side is going to be the gun cannon, gun tank, which are better suited kind of sitting at base, because not only do you have cover from line of sight damage from the Zoc, but it funnels the enemy team, and it funnels the Zeon suits to push in from A, from B side with a limited, you know, means, because you still have the boost to get up here. And then you already know about the tunnel, so it locks you in if your front line is very aware to kind of shift and deal with threats as they push in. Sometimes you can get lucky and everybody just pushes in here and you just soften them up and just downswing. But typically you don't want to overextend to, like, say B, because holding a defensive option at B, well, look what happens. You're basically, even though you have cover, you're pretty much out in the open. There are so many different water avenues that the Zeon side takes advantage of, that, you know, with the two act guys in stealth, they can very much disrupt your team with this open area right here. There's the tunnel down there in the middle. They can easily flank around and sneak around this way. Just a lot of the pathing that you kind of have to keep in mind. And speaking of our big boy, the Zoc right there, yeah, he's pretty imposing, especially because he's going to be mostly over here. Since you don't have a raid to kind of deal with him, it's going to be kind of hard to push towards something like that. But at the same time, he does not have any sort of melee defense. So the defensive game is kind of the key. It's not as glorious at the same time, but if they do push kind of stupidly, you can really capitalize on that. Now, jumping into the Zeon perspective, a lot of times you're going to be holding this midpoint here. You're very rarely going to be pushed back to base, so this is not likely to happen, but a lot of times you're going to be here basically pressing the assault. So kind of like Battlefield's rush mode, if you will. The reason for that is you got to deal with this open space here. Now, the nice thing about it is you do have cover. You do have the side means of pushing up to the enemy base. We'll just pretend that's the white base, since they couldn't model the white base in there, but say they're attacking the white base. Basically, you got to deal with the two supports. That's the biggest issue, even though your team's mostly raids except for the Zoc. That's the only thing you have to worry about. So typically you want the GOG to kind of push up the middle. Your ACT guys will be pushing off the flanks and utilizing that stealth that they do so well at. Basically, if anything, you probably pair the GOG with the Zagok pushing up as that front line there, because not only does it collapse the amount of space for the Federation team to kind of move around and address your team, it does kind of lock down the enemy, so that way our big boy, the Zoc right here, can actually just get some easy kills. Because unfortunately, it doesn't have any type of build stun weapons. These are completely linear, so you have to kind of get creative on where you can attack. And also, because it is such a big suit, it's also an easier target for the gun tank and gun cannon to lock it down. So that's basically what it's going to have to be countering with. Alright, so let me throw my face back on there, sorry, since we're doing this live. I think it's a great thing. I know not everybody has the perfect experience with situational battles being in as a weekend thing, especially with the fact that they threw it in as a as a option that they're introducing through the developer newsletter. I think there could have been a lot more, well, based on what you guys have been saying overall, like something like along the lines of there should have been a lot more exposure with something like, hey, we want to try this new thing that we're introducing in GBO2, give it a lot more attention, a lot more love with a lot of different modes and everything, just because other IPs with Bandai tend to get that type of treatment. We want, if anything, yeah, I definitely do agree that 2 weeks is definitely a sign of it being kind of like a trial period, because of the fact that maybe it's they're unsure. BB Studios is unsure of how the community would react to something like that. I mean, initially when you guys first played it, it's like, what the hell is this? It's so one-sided, but realistically, GBO2 is definitely like that when we play normally, even as well, because then not only do we have players that have a lot more playtime in there, you have certain suits that are built a lot differently too. I mean, we're also looking at the fact that we're dealing with different costs, but at the same time too, they're cost-wise they are about even. It's not going to be 100% even, but like you do have things that force you to adapt element-wise to the scenario at hand, where we're in essentially a close quarters map. So typically in mind, when you have, speaking from the Federation perspective, you have a situation where you have generals and supports. A lot of times your generals will have to frontline and also be the raids at the same time. It's a new concept that I don't think a lot of newer players will understand, but I think a lot of the veterans that have been doing that in public matches and even in clan matches, those close quarter maps, that if your raid's down, you sometimes just have to push and just suck it up. But as I said before as well, from the bottom of my heart, in the most positive way, sometimes you guys just got to get good too, myself included. So there's that. And then we went over with the fact that with the Zeon side, it is a much more aggressive composition, so they have that luxury, and I think that's their biggest strength to essentially win that scenario, is they have to play aggressively, smartly but aggressive, so that way the Federation can't make space for both the gun tank and the gun cannon to do their work. Because even though they have a damage disadvantage against every raid that's on that team, with an exception to the Zoc, it essentially still builds stun. And that's, I think, the key about playing suits that are completely not pickable, they're not tuned. Well, you still tune them, of course, if you own them, but like you can't throw in custom parts at the same time, and you can't pick and choose what you start with. So it's like you can't go run a whole team of grandpa Gundams, or troll with a whole bunch of gun tanks. Sorry, kids, can't do it. Or run a whole team of GMs. Trust me, I know there's people out there like to do that as well, or vice versa. But the point is that you have to play to the strengths of not only your team, but the suits that you're running. So the nice thing about running the Act Guys and the GMs for that matter is, yeah, every kill counts, but because they're on the lower totem pole of points, you can play a little more aggressively or defensively depending on what the situation is. And it's okay to kind of lose them, but you kind of want to keep track of your losses too. It almost seems like the way that this mode plays out, your Operation V team, and then you got Char's team, which is the Zagok, the Zoc, and the Gog, being kind of that core center of the team, and they're not as expendable because they do kind of add up as the match progresses. So hopefully that kind of cleared up why I like it. There's a lot of different factors. Like I said, it reminds me of the old school Federation versus Zeon, almost like a spiritual take on, although it's slower, basically that whole Federation versus Zeon formula. It's almost even like series battle and mix-up thrown in there too, because we're dealing with a fixed cost, fixed selection of suits. It's all randomized, and it's down to who has the better coordinated team, which we do on a regular basis on both rated and quick matches. So I don't speak for everybody, but I think for the people that do like it, like a lot of the different modes that they do try, I think they need to be more permanently in the game instead of the trial process, and essentially give something else for us to do, because anything else that's new, that's not the monotonous day-to-day dailies and rated and quick match and custom matches, I think that's going to be a great thing for anybody that's invested time into this game. So alright folks, that concludes our little video on why situation battles are really cool. Hopefully BB Studios sees this and makes it a lot more permanent, as with some of the other modes that they've tried in the past. We'd like to see less of the just weekend mode type of things, make it a lot more more permanent, just so we can play it. We like to play stuff outside of just the regular normal quick modes, ace, simple battle, basic, quick on basic, regular matches. We want to do some other stuff too with the game, because, you know, as much as some of us might complain about the ins and outs of GBO2, we still very much love this game, and we would love for them to advertise a lot of this stuff a lot more at the end of the day. So with that said, that'll be it for now. I'll see you guys all on the next video. Take care.